In this video, I want to talk about why you're not jacked yet and what you can do about it based on wherever you are on the exercise ladder. And I see many different stages or ways to cut this ladder or the progression that you might take in your exercise journey, but I really want to break it down for the purpose of this video into 3 stages. And we're going to talk about actually the middle stage first, but in breaking this down, we have people who don't like the gym at all, and they don't see fitness as part of their identity. They have not yet really tapped into enjoying exercise, and this is for people who just haven't even started and they don't know where to even start. The next stage is people who are enjoying the gym, or they go to the gym regularly, but they're not that consistent. And the final stage is that people like the gym, they are consistent, but they are not yet seeing the results that they need, or they haven't really figured out what they're doing wrong. So no results, not sure how to move forward. So the very first thing that I want to talk about here is not actually the beginning of the ladder, but this kind of middle stage. And I'm doing this because there's some amount of exposition that needs to take place. And the people who have figured out how to actually succeed the most in the gym have established themselves into a really solid foundation. And they've done so by figuring out this 80-20 rule, the Pareto law of the fact that most of their gains, most of the results are from the sensory reality of going to the gym, enjoying the gym. And this is actually what drives all of their consistency and their growth. And we'll talk about that in a sec. Where most of the exercise content and the way that people talk about the gym is in fact 20% schematic. And that's what gives you the large amount of results. And when you're at this top end of the ladder up here, you do in fact need to focus on this. But for the lower stages here, I don't really like calling them lower stages, but the earlier stages here, you need to dial in your sensory reality so that you make the basic units of the gym fundamentally enjoyable. So what do I mean by that? If you've gone to the gym before and you know how to lift weights, or you've done it a little bit, you probably are doing a lot of things where you're researching schema and you're trying to tap into skipping a step. I'm gonna call it schematic, and this is sensory, where you've seen a lot of things like how to optimize your diet. You've seen things like workout splits. You've seen things like, I don't know, what's an S tier exercise? Anything that is organized or tactical instead of things like playing like a kid or rolling around on the ground or mind muscle connection or stretching. And the people, again, who have succeeded have already dialed this in. They've already generally figured this out. And people who are getting some amount of success, they're kind of in this weird middle ground, they probably have gotten pretty far with a little bit of each, but not fully dialing this in, because it makes it really hard to actually care about any of these schematic things and get the kind of top end of results if you have not dialed in this foundation. So how do you actually dial in that foundation? How do you get to the point where you are in fact enjoying the gym and you are living in your sensory reality so that it is pleasant? Typically, people approach the gym from a state of saying, I kind of force myself into it. And in neuroscience, there's this concept of fire together, wire together, where the more that you do something in parallel with something else, you will kind of fuse these pathways together. So in exercising and disliking it, forcing yourself into it, you're going to forever associate the gym with pain and suffering and displeasure. So what you need to do is find a way to fuse together the pathways of enjoyment and lifting so that you can go to the gym and you can enter the flow state and you can lift weights and move around and be like, I have no thoughts. I'm just a gorilla moving weight around. It's cool. So getting to here is essential. I want to return to this in a second and talk about how you might actually ascend this ladder from the basic state first. So if you don't like the gym, there are a few things you can do. The first is that you should reshape your identity or redeclare your identity. And this works from a process of fake it till you make it. You need to then cast votes into your identity, and then you need to claim the narrative or claim that identity. So what does this actually look like? It sounds a little bit woo-woo, and it's maybe trending into manifestation here, but you can basically tell yourself things like, I like the gym. And then you can do something like 1 push-up. And then you can tell yourself, I like the gym because I did a push-up. And when you've built this narrative here by saying, because I did this thing, and when you've told yourself this statement, you're forcing your brain into a state of congruency where we don't like lying to ourselves. So find a way to break this down as small as possible to where it is, in fact, pleasant. You can definitely make a little bit of a lie for the first statement based on whatever your dream outcome is. So if you have like a dream where you are, in fact, super jacked, you've got a giant muscle, and here's your hand. I don't know. It's your tricep. It's a really poor hand. Anyway, take this identity and use that as your compass. So you've got your compass that says, I'm pointing to me being in this dream identity where I am, in fact, lifting and I have a great physique. What are some of the statements that somebody like in this reality would say or would do? They probably would say, yeah, I like lifting. They would say, I exercise often. And how do you think they got there? They got there by basically saying, when I make these statements, I follow up on them. So I actually go to the gym. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can break this down to the smallest possible unit to where if somebody says, I like lifting, I go to the gym. I can go to the gym and not even lift weights, but I still have to do that step if I am going to lift weights. So getting to that smallest little barrier in the first place is really essential. Saying I exercise often. Maybe I did 1 push-up on my lunch break. I've made that true. I basically claim this. As long as you are following your compass, any of these statements that still push you in this direction, you're on the right track. And the more that you tell yourself any of these things, it really reinforces the fact that you can influence change on your reality. And I think that fitness is actually the greatest example of this because it's really easy to break this down and find the smallest possible unit where you make an identity statement, you cast a vote into it, and then lo and behold, a week later, it feels natural to you. And I've seen this work for a lot of people in my Flex and Paint program where they've made this shift exactly, and they've found that over time they are more consistent in the gym, and they found that they have enjoyed the whole process. So it really works. If you're curious about a fast track and you want to learn more about the Flex and Paint program, the link is in the description, so feel free to schedule a call and we'll talk about it, because there are ways that you can ascend this ladder as quickly as possible. So point being, if you have no familiarity here, you need to first make identity statements, and then you need to make some amount of familiarity. And you need to break your familiarity down in the smallest possible way that you can. So familiarity with weights, because our gold standard here, what we really want to get a gold star is weightlifting. It isn't cardio. It's not cardio. It's not HIIT training. These things are good and healthy for you, but that's not what we're talking about here if you're trying to actually get jacked, in my opinion. You want familiarity around weights. So what you can do is literally just get yourself a kettlebell, move it around, and that's it. You've built familiarity by having a kettlebell in your space and touching it, and you've started to learn about the sensory reality of what it's like to weightlift. And even better, if you've made a statement saying, I like moving my kettlebell or I like lifting my weight, then it's so easy to then just cast a vote by, you don't even have to do a curl or a press. You can just pick it up. And then eventually you'll get further and further into adding these tools, because we want tools, but we don't want to start with tools. That's the thing. Again, we're trying to ascend this ladder going from sensory first. So again, I want to break down that process in greater detail. Now that you're at this stage where you like some of the basic units, but you're not consistent, or you're trying to like it more and more, and you at least have some familiarity, how do you go from disliking the gym and disliking weightlifting to enjoying it? What people do when they misunderstand this process of weightlifting and haven't yet figured out fire together, wire together, is that they try to do a couple different things here, where we've got the different levels of what you can do. So this level 1, call this like, I picked up my weight. Call level 2, I did a push-up, or I did a curl, or any exercise. And then call levels 3, 4, 5, and 6, or whatever, call this like doing a full, I did a HIIT workout, or I did like an hour-long workout. What people do is they try and make this too difficult on themselves too early, where if you start out and you're going to the gym and you've done all of this stuff where it still just kind of felt lackluster, or you didn't really enjoy the basic thing, then you are only ever reinforcing this idea that weightlifting is unpleasant. So what you should do instead is you should find a way to basically say, I did this small little thing and I still really liked it. And then you can go the next day and you can say, I did this maybe slightly larger thing and I still really liked it. And the more that you do this, eventually you'll get to a point where this outweighs it, and you can say, I went to the gym for 2 hours and I felt like a gorilla and I enjoyed moving all of that weight around and it was dope and I'm happy. This is the thing that you're trying to get to. But people make it to the point where they've passed their pain threshold way too fast, and they haven't figured out how to just live in their bodies and connect with their bodies. So again, you need to do these things of rolling around on the ground, of grabbing a weight, feeling what it feels like in your hand, doing a curl, trying to see, you get to failure and you're like, ooh, my muscles hurt, but you're not like killing yourself for it. You just have to do enough to where you can watch that ebb and flow, feel what that feels like, and then be satisfied with it. Once you get further and further, and you've done this so many times, then you're gonna basically be at the point where your appetite for fitness is really high. And that has solved generally this consistency issue. Some of the other stuff that goes into this is around friction. And if you have friction in your environment, you're gonna have a really hard time continuing to be consistent. So optimizing your environment, and this is again where we start to go more into schematic thinking, is important here. So to optimize your environment, that's things like, do you drive 40 minutes to get to the gym? Do you have to work out with a partner every time? Do you have a hard time dieting because you aren't able to meal prep? Are you having a difficulty in other people who don't support you? Are you having any level of friction that would basically prohibit you from getting into your flow state, your happy place where you can get to go to the gym and enjoy it? So maybe you have to like find your clothes in your closet. Kill your friction and it becomes really easy to just be consistent. But again, it's really based on this fact that you've established your identity. You say, I like lifting, I love it, I get to go to the gym and zone out, it's great. And when you go there, you maybe push yourself and you can feel that it feels great. Once you've done these things and you've passed through these 2 steps, now we're at the land of the fact that most of your results are going to be driven by schematics. So, how do we actually do this? There are countless options here, and there is a lot of exercise science and things that are debated. I don't actually think that I'm the best person to ask about any of these things, but I will say that in being a personal trainer, I'm going to give you my insight into how to make this work for you. And this isn't a catch-all, but generally we want to do a few things like look at our diet and look at our workouts. That's really all that it comes down to, is one of these 2 things. So diet, I want to just talk about very, very briefly. I want to say generally, if you have 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day, then you're going to make muscle growth. And in having muscle growth and increasing your muscle mass, your basal metabolic rate will be higher, so you're going to burn more calories at rest, so you should be at some point shedding more of that body fat. But you also need to look at your overall calories. And if you want to reduce body fat percentage, you have to have a caloric deficit. So there's a lot of tactics around this. I don't want to get into the diet in particular. I actually recommend that people, again, enter the flow state, connect with their bodies, work out. You can't outwork a bad diet, so you do have to analyze, am I consuming too much sugar? Am I drinking a lot? Am I doing these things that are adding calories into my diet that I could forsake? And am I generally eating whole foods? One other element of this that I will say that was a huge point of friction for me was that I ignored my sensory reality around protein intake for a long time, in that I was drinking this really nasty vegan protein powder that I just didn't like. And now I have found a whey isolate that I can tolerate fairly well, and I actually really like how it tastes. So because of the fact that I have this good positive sensory outlook on it, I'm more likely to drink it. And because I do that, it's way easier for me to hit my protein intake, which is always a struggle for me. So again, if you're having any issue with it, go back to your sensory reality first and then come back to these schematic things. But if you're still not seeing results and your diet you feel like you've locked in, generally we want to look at workouts. And workouts, we basically want to say, are you lifting relatively heavy? But it's not really about are you lifting heavy, it's more about like, can you make the weight feel heavy? And I like to tell people to try to get to the 8 to 12 rep range. This isn't a hard and fast rule, but you want to basically put yourself in this state where if you could go to the gym, if you are doing a set and you picked 50 pounds for an arbitrary exercise and you found that you stopped at 12, but you could have done 20 reps, then increase your weight. Like, come on, definitely do it to the point, still safe, but now you're back down to like maybe 15, maybe you're back down to like 10, whatever it is that gets you closer to this rep range. It enables you to dial in and understand that level of what is failure. Same thing goes if you're only ever doing like 3 reps and that just doesn't feel that satisfying to you, you can get strong doing that for sure, but decrease the weight a little bit. So you'll do, instead of 50, maybe you'll do 30, and now you're able to do 8 reps and you're happy. Generally, I recommend that people understand that it's not about getting a pump. It's not about destroying your muscles. It's about stimulus. And so you want to make sure that you are hitting stimulus with a good frequency, a good amount of volume. And from this stimulus, you're going to have recovery insights. So your recovery comes down to that diet, down to your protein intake. It's also about your sleep, so having good sleep hygiene, and your overall like hydration. Calories go into this in the sense that you need calories to fuel your workouts to get this good stimulus. But your stimulus really should look like I said, some amount of this rep range. You want to generally target 10 sets per muscle. per week. And I recommend people to do a full body split or like some sort of upper lower split, in that if you do a bro split where you've knocked out like all of your 10 sets, you're like, I'm just going to get them done. And you do like 3 sets of bench for your chest, and then you do 3 more sets of pec deck all in one day. By the time that you get down to these other sets and you've done your like 10th set in that one day, you've really already stimulated your muscle. You don't need to go crazy to the point where you're like, I'm so sore, I'm so wiped out. So I actually do recommend that people spread this out, which is why doing a full body workout I find to be most effective, and that you can do 3 sets of bench on one day, wait, have a rest day, go back, do 3 sets again, have another rest day, and then do 3 sets again. So if you feel like you are generally trying hard in the gym, you are hitting a good protein intake, your protein goal, you are sleeping so that your stimulus does not go to waste, then you will see results. And there are other factors that you can use to dial in. I think that would definitely expand the scope of this video, and that's not really what I want to talk about. But I'm hoping that you learned something around how to dial in this state to where you have made exercise inherently enjoyable, the base unit enjoyable. Try this out if you are not yet aligning with the identity of someone who is fit, because it really is powerful to tell yourself that you like lifting, you see this dream for yourself. You can get there, it's absolutely possible using these methods. Make it fundamentally enjoyable so that it's almost inevitable, and then feel free to use the tools, things like going to the gym and using all the fancy machines. But if you haven't even dialed in the fact that you can't go to the ground and do a push-up, then I would really encourage you to start there. So I hope that this helps, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out or shoot me a comment. And if you're curious about Flex and Paint, where I go over this method as well as many other systems of how to apply this with parallels in art, and how to reduce your thoughts so that you can get into your sensory reality before you're in the land of schema, then reach out in Flex and Paint, and I'll see you guys later.